Namajnana timirandhasya Jnananjana shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnamansa Parivraj Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunikiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatarine. Panchakolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Vyevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi, Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, today the few are fewer. I think most devotees are in recovery mode from the Vyas Puja and Janmashtami. Now let's see. I'm just thinking I'll do it manually, it's easy enough. I think everyone can be unmuted, it's more fun for such a small group. I wanted to start off with an interesting bit here. I came across this in Jagatarani Mataji's Vyas Puja offering, and I thought it was relevant to our quest. I discovered this quote from your class, speaking to Prabhupada, I discovered this quote from your class spoken in 1969 at New Vrindavan. I keep this message by my side when chanting and read it many times. Here's the quote. The whole world is problem for ordinary persons, but to us, it is not a problem because we see everything Krishna's. If there is problem, it is Krishna's problem. Why my problem? Krishna can know how to solve problem. So we have no problem practically. Krishna's problem. Krishna will see to it. Just like Arjuna was encouraged that nimitta matram bhavasavyasachin. You don't worry about your victory. I have already arranged. So we should have such faith and conviction, and let us try. Let us do very sincerely and seriously. Then everything Krishna will do. I haven't got to do anything. She says, you ensure that Krishna is in control of everything. Just as a chess player moves the pieces on the board, Krishna is behind and within all that is happening. With this perspective that you have given me, I can understand what is my duty. As an insignificant servant, I must work on developing consistent realization of the fact that everything belongs to Krishna, everything is Krishna. That is my work. If I can do that, my responsibility is complete, because then I will know my place and Krishna will do everything. I will be freed from both fear and illusion. So I was thinking of that in relationship to the uncertainties of Vanaprastha life, of which we've heard many times, all the, what would you say? The uncertainties is good. The questions, the fears, the practical difficulties that we may face. But here the conviction is there that Krishna will do the needful. If there's any problem, it's Krishna's problem. And in one sense, that's sannyas. The sannyasi is supposed to be fearless. Abhayam sattva samshuddhi. He's supposed to be free from fear. He's supposed to purify his existence. And Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti, he's supposed to be situated in transcendental knowledge. And the Vanaprastha ashram is the stepping stone or the preparatory stage for that kind of life. So there also the same principle holds. And it's a gradual, or it's a stepping stone, so I can, or a series of stepping stones even, if you will. So I can take a step and depend on Krishna, and then depend on Krishna more, and see how Krishna solves whatever the problems may be. If there's any problem, it's Krishna's problem. Yes. Any thoughts about that? Reflections? Additions?
Yes, Maharaj. I was thinking that it's such a beautiful statement. It gives you like freedom, completely freedom, if you can just depend on Krishna. Sometimes you're able, I'm speaking for myself, you can hold that thought for a while and act on that thought. But sometimes what happens is that we lapse, or I lapse, and go back to the old ways. Oh, I have to do this to make sure that this happens. But if one is able to sustain that way of living, it's such a, it offers such freedom. You don't have to worry about anything. Krishna is in charge, and you're just dependent on Krishna or whatever. But but like you said, I guess it's a stepping stone, and we are practicing towards that goal of complete dependence on Krishna.
Yes.
I was wondering, Maharaj, is this something that Srila Prabhupada
You're a
has
little
said?
far from your microphone, I think.
Oh, can you hear me now better? Is that better?
Yes.
Did Prabhupada say something like, if you take care of Krishna's business, Krishna will take care of your business? Is that a Prabhupada quote?
I don't remember explicitly that, but it seems consistent with what he's said. There was one story, I know this is bona fide because I heard it from Giriraj Maharaj, that Prabhupada was in Bombay. There was one Mr. Sethi, who was a very wonderful devotee. He's the one who stayed up all night with a shotgun, making sure that the demolished temple got rebuilt in Bombay. So he was in the construction industry, and he helped the devotees by constructing rooms for them above the existing dwellings, apartment buildings that were on the property at Juhu. I think that was how it was done. And Prabhupada told him that because you are preparing a place for the devotees, he said, so Krishna is preparing a place for you.
Mm.
Krishna is preparing a place for you.
So sweet.
And he left this world that Mr. Sethi, surrounded by ISKCON devotees chanting Hare Krishna. He was very wonderful devotee, and completely dedicated to Prabhupada. Just wonderful. Any other thoughts to contribute this fine evening? a
Last week, you had asked the participants to share maybe something that they had read on the topic at hand and how they had maybe reflected upon it or implemented it in their own lives. And I know for myself, it takes me quite a while to formulate answers to questions and think about things, but I think that may be an ongoing subject of gradually drawing such information out of people, because I know that people probably have a lot more to share than they're.
Yeah, and by the way, it's this, the assignment is not that you have to have a reflection on what you read or implemented what you read. They can be separate things. Something that you've implemented apart from something that you've read, something that you've understood apart from the particular quote that you've picked up. They're like 4 separate assignments. What you've read, what you've thought about, what you're doing to implement. Were there 4? I think there were 4. But my pad is in my next room.
I think there were only 3.
Okay, well that makes life easy. That means I actually remembered.
I had a question, Maharaj. Maybe this is something that is completely outside of this forum, but perhaps not, because I know your approach.
Yeah, I'm coming down. Come in the back door. Okay, I'm coming there.
Hare Krishna. Your approach seems very practical in that you're finding an interested audience for this topic, whom you hope might take some steps towards implementing what you're presenting. And what I thought is probably a very impractical thing, that the temple presidents all over the world should be developing and encouraging Vanaprastha ashrams, just as they're developing, and maintaining brahmachari ashrams on site within the temple. It seems like the ISKCON is aging as a society to the point where these questions are no longer future questions. They need to be dealt with now. But rather than traveling all over the world and trying to convince temple presidents to allocate resources and energy to that, you're starting with people that might already be interested in their, implementing these things in their own life. It's hard to do things on a societal, to start top down,
Yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence, all things told, in resolving that all over ISKCON X should happen or Y should happen. In my experience, it most often doesn't happen unless it's something that, sort of like a top level issue usually with money attached to it, and something crucial or seen as urgent and crucial. But I like the approach of saying, all right, whoever gets realization about this, and we hope some temple presidents will pick it up. And also it tends to unfold, it's artificial in one sense. Okay, every temple will have, space dedicated for Vanaprasthas, or every temple will welcome Vanaprasthas or something. These things tend to happen organically. Vanaprastha and you make some space for them, or somebody writes to you and that sort of thing, where you say, well, we could do something here, or somebody wakes up and realizes that, wow, we could really do something if we developed our Vanaprastha community. So, and then some other community, it's all people in their 20s and that sort of thing, and they're focused on some other kind of issues. But for those who pick it up, there's so much value here, and ISKCON can benefit from it. And we hope to see temple presidents and others taking these things into account. Old temples at least have sort of developed systems. In most temples, you can go and you can stay for 3 days. There's some accommodation. At the holy places in India, there's some arrangement. Dharmashalas, wealthy men have given money to accommodate pilgrims. And so in that way, there's some sort of very well long established traditions for Vanaprasthas, especially those who are pilgrims. But ISKCON, being younger and in some ways more complex in its scope, is will have to find its way. And meanwhile, those who are on the, again, sort of the front lines here, the first generation ISKCON Vanaprasthas are in a unique position. They're going to be either missing the boat entirely, just saying, no, I can't leave family, my family commitments, I need to keep working and everybody needs me and so on, and they'll just miss the boat. Or else they'll take steps, and some will be more bold and some will be more tentative, but those who take it seriously will discover something. And Krishna will give them more and more intelligence how to move forward. And maybe there'll be missteps and they'll learn from that also. And there'll be difficulties. And that also we learn from. But that's, in one sense, that's wonderful. And Krishna appreciates it, that this person has taken it seriously. He's taken the instructions seriously. So tadami buddhi yogam tam. And I've seen that, devotees who are seriously adopting a renounced mood, a mood of cult, if not a renounced mood, a mood, let's say, of greater renunciation, a mood of greater detachment, a mood of cultivating detachment, and then a sense that I have to go back to Godhead finally. What did I join for? What is my objective? And how do I step forward? That sense, they're reading the books, they're seeing this message repeated again and again and again, and they're saying, oh, that means me. Or without the O, they say, yes, that means me. And then they take it seriously and implement it, each in his or her own fashion. And there will be, it's not stereotyped. It's not that every person in family life has to follow exactly the same path, because everyone's situation is different.
Right.
But that
Mara?
principle, yes.
Yeah, I think just the fact that we're having these meetings, online conferences, talks about it, is very helpful. And I feel like I'm starting to come out of the mode of wanting to just hear and get ideas and move more into talking about it with others. Like, we have the Facebook group, which isn't very active, but I post things and people ask me, did you post the class yet? Because they can't see it at the regular time or whatever. And I'll start posting it onto my personal Facebook more so that people know that this is going on. And we've also, I think my husband gave me a couple of email addresses that I need to get in touch with, say, okay, just, I've been soaking it in more, and now I feel more ready to put it out there and say, hey, who's thinking about Vanaprastha? Personally, I feel like maybe people who are in their late 30s or early 40s might be a good audience also for this. Just, maybe in how we present it, dang it more, oh, have you thought about retirement yet? How to have a Krishna conscious retirement, because maybe people are a little scared by the word Vanaprastha. I don't know. But I also think that in one sense, at least for now, the beginning, I'm willing to have a broad umbrella over the term, term Vanaprastha. Even people who aren't following very strictly at all, if they're in that phase of life and they're taking some little step towards it, or saying anything, it's not stereotyped. that we can encourage that in people's minds. Like, yeah, this is one level of Vanaprastha, and here's another level of Vanaprastha, another way of doing Vanaprastha, you know, and just getting it more in the consciousness of the society in general.
I think if more people join our Sangha here, we'll benefit from their ideas, their realizations, their thoughts, or their questions also. So it's great that you can involve people. That would be great, very good.
Yeah, I think it's just, you
on
know,
retirement,
raising
I
the
thought
awareness. I don't think it's something that people think of very much right now. Sorry?
Well, some people do, some people don't. But my headline question lots of times for some devotees, for older devotees, is what are your plans for your retirement? Is my microphone not working?
You're fine on my end.
Okay, that's my question for devotees often is, what are your plans for your retirement? Which is, you know, in line with your thoughts. It's perhaps a less forbidding way of asking about their direction in life than saying, "What about Vanaprastha?" But what are your plans for your retirement? Because people do think in those terms. Older devotees, if they're mixing to any extent with others, the others in their age group are thinking about retirement, which to them means something very different, of course. But to think about retirement is something that pretty much everybody does in their old age. So what are your plans for your retirement? Now you're not only having hearing problems, but we can't hear what you're saying, Tulsi Priya. If you've plugged headphones in.
I'm sorry, I muted myself accidentally.
Okay.
I think that the way you frame this as the Vanaprastha is also a really good idea. It's funny because a few years back, my husband and I were talking about this when we used to travel around more, and there was a movie years ago called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I said, oh, we could call Kendra and Tulsi as Ex Vanaprastha Adventure, and so we used that title for the Sangha. I thought that's pretty cool, and I think that's nice for framing it because, you know, instead of having this idea, oh, I'm reaching the fact of life, it's like, no, this is the last inch, you know, before the final exam and moving, you know, going back to head.
You just look at Prabhupada and what
there's a thing called the tiny house movement. I don't know if you've heard about it. People build a tiny house. I mean, it's a real actual house, and then they'll attach to a truck or something, and they'll go traveling around in different places. It's kind of like a camper thing, but a lot of times it's just the people minimizing their possessions. It's kind of interesting.
You're breaking up. I don't know if that's happening.
Yeah, your audio, Tulsi Priya, is kind of snapping in and out. Are you?
Yeah, well, I'm in the same room with the router, so I don't know what's going on.
Maybe if you just speak slower, you know, we'll be able to fill in the blanks better.
I'm not hearing, and I'm not being heard, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's there you are. That's old age. Hearing doesn't work. Speaking is.
I'm gonna leave the thing and try coming back in again. I don't know what else to do.
Okay, try that. Often reset works very well. Some other devotees with some thoughts here this evening? Something you've read, something you've realized, something you're doing?
Gurudev.
Lakshmana?
Yes, my realization is that one time.
I'm sorry, you're also hard to hear. A little slow, un poco más despacio.
Okay.
And y bien claro.
My realization is one time Mother Chaitanya Lila, I believe, she passed away, and all his belongings were the daughter put in the temple, put in the temple like for her is nothing else. It's only object, and put it in the table so the devotees can take it. But for her, maybe it was something that for her was like that. You know, she was attached to those elements, to those
I
items.
don't think I understood. Did you get that, Kendra Prabhu?
I'm sorry, no, it wasn't coming through so clearly.
Quizás en español será mejor.
Okay. Que yo realicé
¿Sí?
que una madre de acá dejó el cuerpo, la madre creo Chaitanya Lila, y todas las cosas que para ella eran importantes, mínimo en la casa, las decoraciones, todo. La hija cogió todo eso y lo puso en el templo.
¿Su hija qué?
La hija
Sí.
cogió todas las cosas de ella y las puso en el templo para el que quisiera.
So there was a devotee who was leaving her, on the way to leaving her body, correct me if I'm wrong, and her daughter collected her things and brought to the temple for whoever might wish to have them. ¿Sí?
Entonces yo realicé que, o sea, si uno no se desapega cuando uno está vivo, igual los hijos lo van a hacer por uno. Entonces, en este momento, en Vanaprastha, pienso que el problema más serio es que nadie quiere dejar sus casas con sus cosas, pero en el momento que se deje el cuerpo, eso va a ser basura para otros.
No entendí todo, pero puedo traducir lo que entendí. So she realized, Lakshmana realized that part of the problem is that we don't want to leave our homes, we don't want to leave our possessions. There was also a point, I think, that this is reflected in our sons and daughters. They pick up what we do. And then lo demás no entendí.
O sea,
¿Más que esto?
Lo que uno no deja en vida, cuando está vivo, los hijos lo van a botar como basura.
¿Los hijos para qué?
Throw in the garbage, you know, they're going to throw in the garbage.
If we don't develop detachment from our stuff while we're alive, our descendants will just trash it.
And it's a huge burden too.
We're attached to all this stuff which means so much to us, and so we're holding on to it for 60 years, you know, filling our homes with all this stuff, and then, you know, we die, and for others it's like, yeah, mom collected all this junk, and or dad collected all this junk, and then they just trash it. It's like, you know, what was all this? And we're thinking this is our. Probably gave that example, some woman who was carrying firewood on the train. You know, it was like very important. But, you know, we're holding on to this stuff as if it's so important, and it's really not. And the proof is that it's not worth leaving to anyone. You leave it behind you, and they just clean out your closets and, you know, trash half of it and give the other half to Goodwill.
Or they don't trash it and then they're stuck with it. It's a burden on them.
Yeah.
Because they have sentimental value. They can't bring themselves to throw it out because it's mom's.
It becomes part of their collection of stuff that.
Yo no creo que los jóvenes de ahora, las generaciones de ahora, están interesados en mantener lo que uno mantuvo. Para ellos basura.
The children of today, it seems, the young people of today, don't want to complete that otra vez.
Keep las cosas que uno dejó.
They hold on to it also and don't let go of it.
No, porque incluso ellos ya no están interesados en la herencia de la casa, del papá, del carro, del papá, del business del papá, porque ellos quieren su propia casa, su propio carro, su propio business.
They're not interested in taking care of their, you know, in their parents' home, their parents' car, their parents' this, their parents' that. They want their own stuff. You know, their own home, their own car, their own this, their own that. So that's true. Everybody's a little collector, you know. The whole, this is Janasya Moho Yam Aham Mameti. Everybody's holding on to stuff. This is mine, this is mine, this is mine. And even if the stuff is worthless, in the mind, I mean, what is the value? The value is in the mind. And we say sentimental value. What is sentimental value? I mean, there is such a thing if the sentiment is in connection with Krishna, ultimately. Otherwise, all right, there's some sentiment, my wife, my family, but it becomes the focal point of their life. So a man is sitting at his desk and the picture of his wife is there, the picture of his kids is there, and because his heart is there. But finally, all these things to which he's dedicating himself are going to be lost. And Vanaprastha life means realizing in advance, getting smart early and seeing that, you know, it's a split up program. Either I'm going to go or she's going to go. One of us is going to go, and then that's that. So developing detachment, and you know, our things are going to go, or we're going to go and leave the things behind. So what's the word? Loosening our connection, our dependence, first of all, on a lot of these things that we think are so, you know, without this stuff, how could I function? Without this, without this, without this, without this. Loosening our dependence. There's a word, anapeksha. Anapeksha shuchir daksha. In the 12th chapter, the qualities of a devotee. One is anapeksha. He's not dependent. It's not dependent on the ordinary course of affairs or ordinary, yeah, that's how Prabhupada translates it. But we think without my, you know, I can't go here or there because my whole setup is here. Everything that makes my life possible is all here. So I could never move. And then we're stuck. We're as the Bhagavatam says, like the silkworm trapped in its own cocoon. It makes such a nice cocoon that the silk merchant comes and throws it in oil or water or whatever, and the worm is finished. The thought that comes to my mind, there's Batu Gopal Prabhu has made a comment. I've just now cleared my father's stuff. Father passed away. So much stuff. It's painful how much he was holding on to and didn't use any much of it. So there's the same point. I think of as an example of people who are in countries where the government is either persecutorial or falling apart, where everything is obviously going south, and they hold on. For the Jews, Nazi Germany, the writing was on the wall, and people are not. They're thinking, no, it'll get better, it'll this or that, and so they, you know, lost their lives and lost their property and lost everything. And there are other examples from other parts of the world where an intelligent person would have dropped his stuff and just said, you know, better my life than my stuff. But we're so attached to our stuff that we can't give it up, and we lose our life. So projecting that we're so attached to home and family and routine and security and comfort that we and our television, or if that's what our taste is. We can't conceive of a different life. How would I live? If I weren't here, how would I live? Even those of us who have some service, if I weren't a BBT trustee, if I weren't a GBC man, if I weren't a temple president, if I weren't whatever it is, if I weren't the head of this or if I weren't in charge of that, how would I live? If I didn't have this service, even if it's not, the top service, if I didn't have this service, whichever one they're paying me for these days, or providing me facility in exchange for, how would I live? Again, stuck thinking that and therefore nobody else should take my place. It's a threat. If some young person comes up and learns to do what I know how to do, what will happen to me? What will happen to me? If someone else knows how this service works, someone else knows the ins and outs of it, I become redundant. They'll take the younger person over me and I'll be finished. And then what will happen to me? So these fears come into the mind, or they're almost unconscious sometimes, and they work to our own detriment, and even to the detriment of the next generation, who can't get a space because all the positions are filled up with people who can't really do as much as they ought to be able to do, but who won't let go. They won't let the young and capable and energetic people take up this service, because what would happen to me? So in the name of service, they're doing a disservice to their organization and to themselves. They're not really able to do it, but they won't give it up. In Venezuela, they say, ni lava ni presta la batea. They won't wash, and they loosely translated, they won't wash and they won't lend you the bucket.
Yeah.
Raj?
Go ahead.
Yes.
I was thinking how, and you would know the reference, I do not, but when Prabhupada talks about how a man and a woman meet and there is attraction, and when there's attraction, then they join together and children are produced, and then you need an apartment, and your family members increase. And so all of this, this expansion of material entanglement and material desires, it seems like the Vanaprastha is, and now I'm connecting it to the other thing, when the yogi does meditation, and you were talking about this, but I don't remember in relation to what, when the senses withdraw, or the consciousness withdraws from the senses, and then there's the different layers that the spirit soul rises through before going. So I'm thinking all of this is sort of like an unwinding. The Vanaprastha is this sort of unwinding of the material entanglement. You expand,
Yep.
and then you contract. And
yeah,
then
you built it up, and now you wind it down.
Yeah.
I think the example from the yoga system is how the yogi merges, the elements into the mind, and the mind into the intelligence, and the intelligence into the mahatattva. And
That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
So we take all this, all the things, our outward expanded energy, and we start withdrawing it and focusing it on Krishna. So yes, we've exfoliated in so many ways, and now the project is to, in one sense, narrow our focus, which is really broaden our focus,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever metaphor you use. Now our project, I like winding up and winding down. We wound ourselves up, which a young person does. He gets married. He's on a career path. He's building up his network. He's getting money. He's educating his children. You know, so many things. So he goes from being small to being big. If he's not a big man in society, still, you know, he's got now more stuff, more responsibilities, more expenses, more concerns, more anxieties, more duties. And old age, let's leave aside Vanaprastha. Old age means you have to give everything up. Nature takes it back. You had that vitality, that, you know, spunk. I'm taking it back. You had 20/20 vision. I'm going to start withdrawing it. You had great digestion. I'm going to start wrecking it. You had strength. I'm going to start sapping it. That example is in the fourth canto, how the serpent becomes more and more weak because it's being attacked by the 360 male and female soldiers. So nature's ultimately going to be taking everything back, but the materialist wants to hold on to as much as he can. Or he says, all right, I can give up this, I can give up that, but he's still holding on to material things that are the core of his life. And Krishna consciousness means voluntarily giving up more, giving up more, giving up more, but with the purpose, taking up more in Krishna's service. It may, whether it's bhajan, whether it's preaching, he's unburdening himself of so many things he built up, detaching himself from so many things he built up and got involved with. And now he's free to proportionately absorb himself in the happy business of Krishna consciousness. Or looking at the other way, the more he says, all right, I'm going to engage myself in the happy business of Krishna consciousness, the more easy it is to detach himself from so many superfluous things, as Prabhupada sometimes calls them, superfluous things. And ultimately, everything in the material world is a superfluous thing.
Maharaj? One thing that occurred to me when you were talking about, you know, those who are in leadership or management roles handing the reins over to the younger generation, you said it's to the detriment, and when they don't do that, it's to the detriment of the youth, it's to the detriment of the person who's still holding on to the reins. And I think we could also argue, it just occurred to me, that it's also to the detriment of the society, because what happens is that young people, like you say, they're wound up. They want to, you know, they want to be in control. They want to be in charge of things. They want to get stuff done. And if people give up the reins, if the older generation gives up the reins while they're still young enough to have some energy to be advisors and guides, then the young people, you know, they have that influence, they have that guidance, and they can still, you know, there's scope for give and take and argument of how things should be done. But if somebody waits until the very last minute, then you don't have anything you can't really offer. It's like you die or you're too sick, and then some young person has to take over, and they're like, you know, how do they benefit from your guidance? The other thing is if they don't get that, then they'll go elsewhere. They'll go outside the society to have something to take charge of, to be somebody. And that's sad, because what happens is, and I'm just thinking of one particular person right now, he specifically alluded to this idea that, you know, there's no room for the young people, and now he's involved in other things, and it's not so Krishna conscious, you know.
Yeah, you'll lose your brightest people. You know, a person who's bright figures it out that there's nothing, they're not going to give me any space. the old men are going to hold on until they, they'll be, on the drip and lying prone, and still they'll be, holding on to their posts. So the bright people think, well, let me go someplace else. And often, they get involved in some material enterprise, which is not really in their best interest. And as you point out, institutional memory is lost. The opportunity for training is lost. The opportunity, if you wanted to have an influence on the future, your opportunity for that is lost. So it's definitely not to the advantage of the institution at all. Not at all. And even, it's just not good. So for the next generation, in first of all, to give them space, to give them training, and then also to give them the example, because they're going to be the next old goats. These bright young people, they're going to be 50, they're going to be 70. Yeah. And what example will they have? Well, dad kept, dad stayed home, mom and dad stayed home and lived peacefully into their old age, sort of a humdrum existence. I guess I can follow suit. Or, imagine, I was hearing one devotee, I forget who it was. I remember who it was. Bhagavati. I think she was saying how her son was doing very good things and how proud she was. Was it Bhagavati?
She doesn't have any children.
No children. So who was it?
She considers Madan Gopal.
Oh, Madan Gopal is her son. Yeah, she has him for a kid.
Her spiritual son.
Yes.
How proud she was of him. So that example can be there for the young generation, that they can be proud that my mom was totally into bhajan, my dad was preaching all over the world, whatever it was, that in their last years, my mom and dad were in Vrindavan serving Krishna Balaram, whatever the example is, it will be there for the next generation so that they can think, as they did it, let me do it. Otherwise, if the example was, well, it wasn't so bad, they kind of like, whatever, something tepid, then it will be less inspiring. And the ultimate example is Prabhupada, what he did and how he did it. So, and we're all getting our inspiration, our example from there. And if we take it and make it ours, that, all right, I may not get on the Jaladuta with 17 rupees, but I'll do something. I'll do something. I'll do more than I'll make a serious commitment to doing something more, to breaking free from just the inertia of householder life. Householder life has an inertia to it. A body, what do we say? A body at rest tends to stay at rest. So we have this inertia. Why change? Just kind of wake up every day and do the same thing. But that's why the spiritual masters and the Shastras are saying, no, don't do the same thing. See the signs. Read the handwriting. See the signs. Do something different. Change. And what does that change? Act with detachment. Move toward absorption in the essential business of life. So again, how we do that, that's an individual matter, and I'm hoping that we'll hear more from other devotees, especially when we have a full complement almost now. We have quite a number of devotees who've joined. We're up to 10 Let's see what Sankarshan Prabhu has to say. Other ISKCON devotees may say that Prabhupada appointed GBCs for life, so they should keep going as long as possible. On another point, they should keep going as long as possible. Yeah, one of my godbrothers, who was a GBC man, remarked about one of his GBC colleagues. He said, he'll never die. He said he's too attached. But I've seen that GBC for life. My understanding is that Prabhupada did that to avoid politics. He preferred GBC for life to every 4 years elect, hold an election and do all that kind of stuff. But I doubt that he was saying, till your very last day, make sure you're in office, because I've given you this responsibility and I never want you to let go of it. A wise chief executive or a wise board member is always looking to replace himself. I saw that in a blog, I think, from some Christian minister who's saying, in the ministry, from the first day, your job is to find your replacement. And the same principle holds true in corporate life, that an organization where all the people with power are looking to hold on to their power forever is a sick organization. Healthy organizations look to bringing people up and training new people. And I saw, again, I don't remember who, some corporate guru or something. He was saying that when somebody's can do what you can do to 75% of your capability, shove off. Nobody's going to come and be. It sometimes happens that someone will be as good as you or better, but often it's just okay. They've got most of it, and now it's time for you to move aside. And you can give guidance to that person, you can give training to that person, but it's time for you to start moving aside, because here's a person who can do most of what you can do, which is good enough. Let's see what else Sankarshan says. On another point, just today, I saw that the original Guru Das is in financial difficulty and is in danger of becoming homeless. So he started a GoFundMe page for help. For someone as peripheral as myself, I view looking for sustenance in old age as a long shot and not a good position to find myself in. Well, yes, that is our concern. Of course, from one point of view, according to our karma, some of us will always have money, and some of us will never have money. Some of us will never have that kind of difficulty, and some of us will always be on the edge, and we can't undo that. That's one thing. Another thing, well, there are many other things about that, but that comes to the same question, which has been coming up really since the beginning of this seminar. The big question is always security. Everything else is, we'll manage. But what about security? Right? It's the security question. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me? How will who will support me? And we heard today at the beginning, those who came late may not have heard, but it was posted in the chat box, that Prabhupada said that, and I'll take part of it at least, that we see everything as Krishna's. If there's a problem, it's Krishna's problem. Why my problem? Krishna knows how to solve the problem. So from that point of view, so a devotee has that may have that confidence that, why should I worry about this? Krishna will worry about it. That requires, or that means that I should be fully dependent on Krishna. I should be fully dependent on Krishna. That Krishna knows how to solve the problem. Just like a child, my father will take care. The child doesn't worry, where am I going to get food from? Now my father will provide. So that these are some thoughts. But again, it's developing that. And also, yes, I mean, there's so many different ways to approach these security questions. And part of it we discussed is that the society will need to grow and to develop the cultural framework that supports Vanaprastha life and supports Vanaprasthas, because the society is traditionally arranged so that the householders give charity to the Vanaprasthas. So that needs to develop. That's one answer. And another answer is, well, we need to do the best we can with setting things up for now. So my wife will have a place to stay, have this or that. I heard, maybe it was Rabindra Swarup Prabhu who was talking about this in yesterday or the day before, that Prabhupada said, in effect, that we should take normal steps for our protection. And then finally depend on Krishna, because your normal steps for protection, that's our job. Not that we neglect the routine business. But finally, we know that even if I'm most attentive to the routine business, it may fail. And even if I'm inattentive, everything may work. So it's finally up to Krishna. But I shouldn't neglect the routine business. So for example, our health these days in the pandemic age or in old age, you don't neglect the routine business, but then understand that it's not guaranteed that because I'm doing the routine business, that will make the ship fly. Not ship fly, stay afloat. Make the plane fly, make the ship stay afloat. Finally, I have to depend on Krishna. And again, this Vanaprastha process is that gradual process for becoming increasingly strong in practical realization. How do I do this? How do I do this? And yes.
Maharaj?
Mm-hmm.
We're coming to the end, but I just wanted to add.
Well, we are at the end of it. We're at 8:02.
We are. When you were talking earlier in this series about, get rid of the TV, get rid of the news, get rid of this. When you get rid of those things, it becomes easier to see new possibilities. Your brain is not being saturated with all that other stuff. So when there's the empty space, you can, I'm thinking even for a security, maybe you think of some way that you can preach or do something that's related to Krishna that also brings in a little income. Just your creativity gets a chance to flower when you get rid of all the other input that isn't really very creative. Yeah,
very good. Well, thank you for reminding me that our time has ended. And Tawako, something is going on. I forget who's speaking this evening. So we can shift over there or shift on to the other things that we have to do. And again, our assignment is to gather things, notice. That was the first thing, just to notice things that you might read or hear that could be relevant to our Vanaprastha adventure. And you can share those with us. Then to consider these different things that you read or things that we're talking about. And third also is to take action, small or big or small, things that you can do that will move your your Vanaprastha project forward, and you can share with us as much as you'd like, and that will help us as a group. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Maharaj, thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Aye. Jai Shri Prabhupada.